Hi, my name is Claire, and I am 30 years old. For as long as I can remember, I imagined my wedding day as the happiest morning of my life, a day filled with laughter, nerves, and the comfort of having my family close by. I pictured my mother, Diana, adjusting my hair with tender hands, my father, Henry, teasing me about finally being all grown up, and my sister, Julia, making silly jokes to keep me from crying. But when the morning finally arrived, it was nothing like I had dreamed. I woke up early, sunlight slipping through the curtains of my childhood bedroom. For a brief second, lying in the quiet glow, I allowed myself to pretend that this was the start of a perfect day. The smell of fresh flowers drifted in, white roses and lilies, filling the house with their fragrance. I almost smiled, convinced that any minute I'd hear voices downstairs. My parents preparing breakfast, Julia sneaking into the kitchen to steal a muffin, maybe even some light-hearted chatter floating through the air. Instead, the silence pressed in on me. The house felt too still, too empty for such a big day. I pulled on my robe and walked down the hallway. My heart raced with anticipation, but as I reached the kitchen, the uneasiness in my chest grew. The counters were spotless, not a single plate or glass out of place. And right in the middle of the table was an envelope with my name written across it in my mother's handwriting. My fingers trembled as I opened it, hoping it was a sweet note or maybe some advice for my wedding day. But it wasn't. The message was painfully short. "Let's see how you face the guests when we won't be appearing at your wedding." That was it. No love, no encouragement, no warmth. I froze in place, staring at the words until they blurred. My parents and Julia weren't in the house. They had actually left me on the most important day of my life. My chest tightened as the realization hit me. They had chosen to abandon me rather than stand by my side. I couldn't understand it. This wasn't how I had imagined my wedding day. The house I grew up in, filled with memories and laughter, now felt like a hollow shell. The living room, usually full of warmth, was eerily silent. Family photos on the mantel stared back at me, but they felt more like distant strangers than the reminders of the love that should have been surrounding me. I tried to convince myself that this was some mistake, that they were just running late, or maybe they were hiding somewhere, ready to jump out and surprise me. But there was no sound, no sign of anyone. The stillness was suffocating. I paced the house, checking every room, hoping to find someone, my father's voice, my mother's laughter, even the sound of my brother's footsteps. But there was nothing. The only thing that remained was the cold letter in my hand, a reminder that my family had chosen Las Vegas over my wedding. They didn't even leave a proper goodbye, just that cruel note. It was hard to breathe as I realized the truth. They didn't approve of James, my fiancé. They thought his family was too wealthy, too different. But I never expected them to leave me like this, on the day I needed them most. I could feel the tears stinging my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I walked over to the window and looked outside, searching for any familiar face, anything that could bring me comfort. But no one was there. By now, people started arriving. My friends and relatives, unaware of the betrayal unfolding inside, began to fill the house. I sat at the bottom of the stairs, still holding the letter, staring at nothing. Then Madison, my best friend, found me. Without saying a word, she sat next to me, placing a gentle hand on mine. She didn't ask any questions. She just knew. "You're stronger than you think," Madison whispered, squeezing my hand. "You don't need anyone's permission to be happy." For the first time that day, I felt something other than anger and confusion. Maybe she was right. I didn't need their approval. Not anymore. As the day wore on, I forced myself to get ready. I let Madison help me into my wedding dress, her hands steady and reassuring as she buttoned me up. She made small talk, cracked a few jokes, trying to keep my spirits up, but it was hard. Every sound, the voices of guests, the laughter in the next room, reminded me of what was missing. I didn't have my family here. My father's booming laugh, my mother's quiet advice, even my sister Julia's playful teasing. They should have been by my side, but instead, they were thousands of miles away, on a plane to Las Vegas, without a second thought. The moment I stepped into the living room, I felt the weight of it all. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, but instead, it felt like a performance. Every eye on me, every camera flash, only served to highlight how alone I felt. Still, I took a deep breath and walked down the aisle. I couldn't show them, my parents, my family, that they had won. I wasn't going to let their absence define me. When I reached James at the altar, his warm smile was the first thing that brought me any peace. He held my hand tightly, his gaze steady, as if he understood everything I was feeling. In that moment, I realized that while my family had chosen to abandon me, I wasn't alone. James was there, and his love was enough. The ceremony proceeded, and the world around me seemed to fade away. I focused only on James, his presence calming the storm in my heart. We exchanged our vows, and when the minister announced us as husband and wife, the crowd erupted in applause. It felt surreal, like a dream I couldn't wake up from. James kissed me softly, and for a moment, I allowed myself to feel what I hadn't felt all day: happiness. But then came the familiar, unwanted feeling again, the ringing of my phone. I hadn't checked it in hours, but the moment I did, my heart sank. There were dozens of missed calls. From Diana and Henry, from Julia. They had seen the wedding on TV. And now they were trying to claw their way back into my life. I stood there, the weight of the phone in my hand like a heavy stone. The calls from Diana, Henry, and Julia kept piling up, along with text messages and frantic voicemails. It was as if the entire world was crashing down on me again. I opened the first voicemail. It was from my mother, and her voice was brittle, laced with panic. "You need to call us back right now. We saw the wedding on television. How could you not tell us it would be like this?" I couldn't help the bitter laugh that escaped my lips. The same family who had abandoned me hours earlier, who had chosen to fly off to Las Vegas instead of supporting me, was now upset because they hadn't been part of the show they thought my wedding should be. Then, another voicemail, this time from Henry. His voice was rough, demanding. "This isn't funny, Claire. Why are you ignoring us? Are you going to throw away your family like this?" I could almost picture him standing there, angry, expecting me to come crawling back, asking for their approval. But I wasn't that girl anymore. The girl who would change herself to fit their mold. The girl who always tried to earn their love. Finally, the last voicemail was from Julia. Her voice was quieter, softer. "Hey sis, I just saw you on TV. You looked amazing. I thought it would be a boring wedding, but you look like a movie star. Call me, okay?" It stung. Julia had always been my sister. We had grown up together, fought together, shared everything. But the family I once thought I could rely on had shattered. And now, after everything, they were trying to rewrite our story. I looked at the screen, at all the missed calls, at the words that now felt so empty. The truth hit me. I had spent my whole life trying to win their approval, but their love had always been conditional. They didn't love me for who I was. They loved the version of me they could control. So, I did the only thing I could do. I set the phone down. I ignored the calls. I let the messages pile up. Because I had found something that was real, something that didn't come with strings attached.
James.
Madison. The people who stood by me. And that was enough. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I had expected my wedding to be filled with the joy and support of family, but instead, it became a quiet declaration of my independence. As the evening wore on, the house continued to fill with guests, strangers to me in many ways, but they welcomed me with open arms. They laughed, they danced, they celebrated James and me, and for a brief moment, I allowed myself to feel like I truly belonged. I found myself in the garden later, the stars above casting a soft glow. James joined me outside, his arms wrapping around me as I stood there in silence. For the first time that day, I felt something other than sadness or anger. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded. I wasn't entirely sure if I was okay, but I was in the process of becoming okay. I had realized that night, amidst the wedding and the chaos, that I didn't need my family to validate me. I had spent years chasing their approval, trying to live up to their impossible expectations. But that was no longer my burden to carry. I am, I said softly, leaning into him. I am. The sound of laughter and music floated from inside, but out here, under the stars, everything felt different. It felt like the beginning of something new, something mine. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. I couldn't ignore the emptiness that my family's absence had left, but at the same time, I started to see the future I could build for myself without them. The world suddenly felt wide open. I had James, I had Madison, and I had the courage to build a life of my own. 3 years have passed since that unforgettable day. Sometimes it feels like no time has passed at all, but other times it feels like a lifetime. Looking back, I can hardly recognize the woman who sat alone in her childhood bedroom, clutching that cold letter, wondering if I would ever feel whole again. Today, James and I live in a house that overlooks Lake Michigan, just north of Chicago. It's everything I once dreamed of, but never believed I deserved. The house is bright, welcoming, and filled with laughter. We have wide windows that let in the sunshine, a kitchen where we can dance while we cook, and a garden where we can sit together under the stars at night. It's our haven, built on a foundation of love and understanding. James has built a successful career in real estate, but at the end of the day, he's always there for me. He's my best friend, my partner in everything. We spend lazy weekends reading on the porch or taking long walks by the lake, laughing about nothing in particular. Still, there are moments when the past catches up with me. A birthday, a holiday, a song on the radio that reminds me of home. Sometimes I wonder about my family, what they're doing, how they feel about the daughter they left behind. There's a part of me that hopes they miss me, but the pain of their abandonment has faded. I've learned that healing isn't linear. The pain doesn't vanish, but it becomes easier to live with, to move forward with. I don't carry the weight of their choices anymore. I don't look for their approval. I've created my own family, a family built on trust, support, and unconditional love. A few months after the wedding, James's parents gave us a gift, $50,000 to help us pursue our dreams. They told me it was for whatever I wanted. It was the freedom I had never imagined I would have. With that money, Madison and I decided to take a leap. We opened our very own boutique in Evanston, a cozy little space that's become a part of the community. It's bright, warm, and welcoming, just like the life we're building. The first few months were a blur of long hours, countless cups of coffee, and the sweet scent of fabric and perfume. We learned the ropes of running a business the hard way, making mistakes and celebrating small victories. But every day, I felt more alive than I ever had before. The boutique became more than just a business. It became a place where people gathered, where strangers became friends, and where every piece of clothing carried a story. Madison and I poured our hearts into it, and we couldn't be prouder of what we've built. It's our dream, our legacy, and it's only the beginning. Looking back, I can honestly say that my wedding day was the start of something beautiful. It wasn't the day I had imagined, but it was the day that changed me. It made me realize that the family I had once thought I needed was never the family I deserved. The family I have now, James, Madison, and the people who have chosen to stay by my side, are my real family. And for the first time, I'm finally whole. It's funny how much can change in 3 years. The girl who once sat in her childhood bedroom, staring at a letter that tore her heart apart, is now a woman who's embraced the freedom that came from letting go of everything she thought she needed. Looking around at our home, our boutique, and the life we've created, I can't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. James and I have built something real, something lasting. Every room in our home tells a story. Every fabric in our boutique holds a memory. The days are filled with small joys, waking up next to him, laughing with Madison over coffee, watching the sunset by the lake. It's not perfect, but it's mine. And for the first time in my life, I understand what it means to be truly happy, not because I've ticked off some checklist of what success is supposed to look like, but because I'm living a life that feels right for me. The pain from my family's absence still lingers sometimes, like a ghost in the corner of a room. On holidays, in quiet moments, I wonder if they ever think of me. But I don't need to know. I don't need their validation anymore. James doesn't just fill the space that was once empty, he makes it whole in a way I never thought possible. Madison has become more than just a best friend. She's my sister in every sense of the word. We laugh together, cry together, and celebrate every victory, no matter how small. I know she'll always have my back, just like she did that day when I was alone, holding that letter in my hand, not knowing how to face the world. Looking ahead, I have so many plans, so many dreams to chase. Our boutique is thriving, and there's still so much to build, so much to create. But I've learned that the future isn't something you wait for, it's something you make. And I'm ready to keep making it, step by step. 3 years ago, I was lost, caught in the web of family expectations and love that came with conditions. Today, I am free. Free to be myself. Free to live a life that I chose. I think that's the most important lesson I've learned. You can create your own family, your own happiness, your own life. And when you do, it's more beautiful than anything you ever imagined. This is just the beginning. As the years pass, I find myself reflecting on the journey I've taken. From the devastation of that wedding morning to the peaceful, contented life I live now, every step has shaped me in ways I never expected. There's a saying that goes, "The hardest times can bring the greatest rewards." I've learned that it's not just about surviving the hard times, it's about choosing what to do with them. I could have let the abandonment of my family define me, but instead, I used it as fuel to build something stronger, something more meaningful. James and I, though we had our own challenges, have found balance. He's not just my husband anymore. He's my partner in everything. He's my rock, and together, we've created a life that feels rooted in love and support. I no longer need my family's approval to feel whole. I've learned that the family you create, the one you choose to build and nurture, is just as real, if not more real, than the one you're born into. And in the end, the people who stand by you, the ones who truly see you for who you are the ones who matter the most. I often think of the letter my mother wrote me, the one that started it all. Sometimes I wonder if they regret it, if they ever wish they could have been there for me. But that's a question I no longer have to answer. The life I've built, the person I've become, it's all mine. And I'm proud of it. I think back to that day and realize that, in a way, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to stand on my own, to confront my fears, and to push through the heartache. Without that pain, I wouldn't have discovered the strength I never knew I had. And now, as I look ahead to the future, I know that it's filled with possibilities. Madison and I have so many ideas for our boutique, and James and I are constantly dreaming up new adventures. Every day is an opportunity to build on the foundation we've created, and every challenge is just another chance to grow. For the first time in my life, I'm not waiting for something to happen. I'm making it happen. And that's a power I never want to lose. It's strange how quickly life can change. In a matter of a few years, everything can look completely different. When I think back to that day when I stood alone at my wedding, wondering how I'd ever make it through, it feels like I'm remembering someone else's life. The girl who cried in her childhood bedroom, holding that cruel letter, she doesn't feel like me anymore. Now I have a life that I've built with my own hands, step by step. James and I have settled into a routine that works for us. Busy workdays, long talks over dinner, spontaneous weekends away. It's a life full of small, beautiful moments. Madison is always there, sharing in those moments too, reminding me of how far we've come and how much more we have to do. She's not just a friend. She's the sister I never had. Together, we've taken our boutique to new heights. What started as a dream is now something tangible, something we're both proud of. Every morning when I walk into that store, it feels like a reminder of everything I've achieved. It's not just about the clothes we sell or the customers who walk through our door. It's about what we've created, a space where people can come and feel seen, feel welcome. Of course, there are still moments of doubt, moments when I catch myself looking at my phone, wondering if there will ever be a message from Diana or Henry or Julia. But those moments are fleeting. They don't have the power they once did. I've learned to let go of the things I can't control and focus on the things that matter. I used to think my happiness depended on the approval of my parents. Now, I know it depends on the choices I make every day. The choice to love myself, to build a life I'm proud of, and to surround myself with people who lift me up. James, Madison, and even the customers who come into our boutique, they are the ones who shape my world now. They are my family, and I'm grateful for every one of them. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid. I'm excited. I'm ready for whatever comes next. Because now I know that I'm strong enough to face it. And no matter what, I'll always have the freedom to create my own path. As I look out the window, at the lake sparkling under the sun, I can't help but smile. Life is good. Better than I ever imagined. And I'm ready for the next chapter. This is just the beginning. The years ahead are filled with infinite possibilities, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. The road I've traveled hasn't been easy, but every twist and turn has shaped me into the woman I am today, stronger, wiser, and more certain of who I am and what I want. James and I have plans. Big ones. We talk about expanding our boutique, possibly opening another location. We've talked about traveling, places I never imagined I'd see, like Italy and Japan, experiencing the world together. But we've also talked about slowing down, enjoying the simple things, and soaking up every quiet moment we get. I don't know where the future will take us, but I do know this. We'll face it together, with open hearts and hands ready to build whatever comes our way. As for Madison, she's still my partner in everything. Whether it's brainstorming new boutique ideas or sitting in the backyard with a cup of tea, we've built something beautiful together. We've built a life full of laughter, love, and resilience. And we continue to support each other, reminding one another that there's no dream too big to chase. There are moments when I think back to the pain I felt on that wedding day, but they don't hold me hostage anymore. I've let go of the need to understand why my family did what they did. Instead, I focus on what I've gained, a new family, one that loves me not because they have to, but because they choose to. Sometimes, when the world gets quiet and I find myself alone with my thoughts, I'll look at the life I've built and smile. There's peace in knowing that every choice I've made, every step I've taken, has led me here. And this is exactly where I'm meant to be. The journey isn't over. It's just beginning. But as I stand at the start of this next chapter, I feel ready. I've learned that life doesn't always give you what you expect, but it always gives you what you need. And for me, what I needed was the strength to walk away from everything I thought I needed, and to walk toward everything I never knew I deserved. This is my story, and I'm only getting started. This story was just the beginning of a journey, one where betrayal turned into strength. It taught me that no matter how hard life gets, you always have the power to rebuild. If you love stories of justice, revenge, and new beginnings, hit subscribe and join me on Revenge Repeat, where every betrayal leads to a new chapter.